Good evening, everyone. Before we start the meeting, I will ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices, and I will, of course, do the same. And I'll note that all members of council, with the exception of Councillor Rowley, are present in the council chambers, and Councillor Rowley is joining us by Zoom. So welcome, Councillor Rowley. If you can hear us, just wave. Good, thank you. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. by recognizing the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Move into the approval of the agenda with a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council approve the April 17th, 2023 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And again, for the benefit of everyone in the council chambers, there will be a pause as I wait for Councillor Rowley's vote. There is a bit of a delay on Zoom. Members of council, have you any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. Councillor Wright.
I have interest regarding the Chamber of Commerce, the Brighton Crammy Chamber of Commerce, as I am a board member.
Are you declaring on 10.1?
Yes, I believe that was the number.
Thank you. Anyone else? Are there any announcements this evening? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. The Accessibility Committee wanted me to mention that the Accessibility Awareness Week is May 28 to June 3. They have a plan in motion to set up information sessions daily in the lobby here by the library. And the Accessibility Committee's recruitment director, Ms. Councillor Wheeldon, will be reaching out to all of the members of council to participate in some of these daily sessions to help us handle the large crowds that will be coming to learn about accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you. And we all look forward to the invitations. Any other announcements? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to bring
We can't
the
hear you,
attention.
Emily.
Oh, can you not hear me?
You are not muted, and we can see that you are talking, but we can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
That's usually a tech problem. I suggest, are you on your iPad?
No.
Yeah, again, we can't hear you, so you're answering, but I can't see whether you're saying yes or no. Okay, hang on for a second, Emily. Jim, can you unmute and just say something?
Hello? Can you hear me?
It's us. Okay,
Yeah,
it's us.
I can hear Emily.
Yeah, you're unmuted and we can't hear you, so we're going to try to solve this tech problem, and we'll take a 5-minute recess while we do that. Councillor Rowley, could you please speak into your microphone, unmute yourself and speak?
Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Okay.
Just
All
give us a
fixed.
second while we reroute all the screens. You ready? Yeah. Councillor Rowley, your announcement.
Okay, yeah, so I just want to bring to the attention of not only council, but the community. The Rotorhead program, it's a mobile wellness program, I think focusing mostly on mental health and addiction. They have a mobile unit, which now will be in Codrington every other Wednesday. There will be in-person counseling. However, it needs to be done by appointment. If you want to check the Codrington Community Center Facebook page, there's more information there. But I just want to bring that to you, as well as the farmers market will be starting May the 7th. So just to let everyone know, spring's coming and Codrington's rocking.
Oh, spring's back. We had summer there for a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's almost winter back.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you for those.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Any other announcements? Thank you all. Takes us to adoption of the minutes with a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Fredis, that council adopt the April 3rd, 2023 council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council adopt the April 6th special council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Are there any opposed? You have a question? Yeah.
Does the agenda not state that it's April 9th versus April 6th?
It's been changed on the one that I'm reading.
Okay.
Thank you, though. I called the vote. The motion's carried. We're going to move on. A motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright, that council adopt the April 11th, 2023 council planning meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening, which takes us to presentations. Council will hear two presentations this evening. Presenters have 15 minutes to provide council with their information. It is noted that language, content, and conduct must remain respectful at all times. Council will be provided with an opportunity to ask questions of clarification from the presentation representatives based on the information that they have presented. Council is reminded this is not an opportunity to engage in debate with the presenter nor advance a public policy position. Presenters are reminded that council does not make decisions during the presentation portion of this evening's meeting. Our first presentation comes from Northumberland County, CAO Jennifer Moore and Director of Finance Glenn Dees. You're already there. Look at you. CAO Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Ostrander. We are glad to return in person once again. For those of you that are new, this is something that the county has done for many years. We come out and visit all the member municipalities about this time and give a bit of an overview of what's been happening at the county. So we will move to the next slide. And what we do is we start with a little bit of a look back at 2022. We hit some of the highlights for 2023, and then I'll turn it over to Glenn and he will talk a little bit about what was approved in the budget this year. If we go to the next slide, we can see that just a quick reminder that our vision is to bring together people, partnerships, and possibilities for a strong and vibrant Northumberland. And you'll notice that these areas of priority are how we will organize some of the presentation. I will just note to everybody that we're in the process of updating our strategic plan. County Council and senior management have already had one planning session. We'll be going out with public consultation in the coming weeks and then bring back a document later this year for council to approve to capture where we want to go over the next 4 years at the county. So we'll skip to the next slide, and actually we'll go one beyond that to the economic prosperity and innovation topic. And here just a couple of highlights from 2022. So we did do a significant amount of work last year in getting ready for some housing builds. They will deliver 84 new affordable units. These will see the Elgin Park redevelopment in Coburg. It's at Elgin and Darcy, if you're familiar with that area. And we will move from 18 units to 40. And then we also have a property on Ontario Street where and I guess that one is in the construction phase. We will see folks move into those buildings later this summer for the first two, and then the second two will begin construction. And then on Ontario Street, we purchased some property and we're in the design and building phase. That RFP is out on the street as we speak, and that'll be 62 units that'll be at that development. We did a lot of work last year with our Business Entrepreneurship Center. We worked with 73, helped to launch 73 new businesses, and that created over 100 new local jobs through much of the programming. The Ontario Agri-Food Venture Center continued to work very hard with local food entrepreneurs and saw 6 new food businesses launched and the expansion of 12 other businesses. So there was a lot of activity, and for members of council, we do have our event coming up next week, and encourage everybody to go because we will let you sample some of the food that is produced there. Hopefully that will be an incentive to come out and learn about the county. We also did have some funding that helped us to do some training, and it was partnership with the Training and Development Center as well as the Northumberland Manufacturers Association, and that saw the launch of 33 employers being supported with resources to help improve their retention and recruitment, and worked with 87 job seekers. If we move to the next slide, some comments on sustainable growth. The Northumberland Next official plan, a lot of work was done there, particularly with the background studies, consultations, and so on. We did recently see some new information from the province, so we'll see how that impacts it. But nonetheless, all very good work as we look at where the county is going from a, excuse me, a land use planning perspective. We did launch our initiative for the delivery of countywide high-speed internet, and there was some announcements. And of course, the launch of that was kicked off up in Codrington in mid 2022, and that's about a $45 million contribution from the federal and provincial governments, but well over $100 million project in total. We hope that that'll start to roll out later this year. And fortunate enough for this group that we do start in the east and make our way to the west on this occasion. So some exciting things happening there. We also did a lot of work in this area around the Golden Plough Lodge. Many of you are familiar with the long-term care home operated by the county. It will be moved from 150 to 180 bed home, and we're just past the 50% completion point there. A lot of work done on our roads, a lot of planning work on County Road 64 here in Brighton. We will see a lot of other work in the coming weeks and months as some of those plans get put into place. Of course, there's projects across the county, the replacement of the Loomis Bridge here in Brighton, but also we did a lot of work on the rehabilitation of the Dartford Bridge in Trent Hills, and more planning and design work for the Trent River crossing in Campbellford. In addition to those projects, of course, we have our normal road rehabilitation and improvement and maintenance program, and our joint surface treatment works that we do with member municipalities. When we look at well, not quite ready to change. There we go. The thriving and inclusive communities priority. Last year, we did see the launch of our community paramedicine program. That was very exciting for us to bring that into our community. We've received rave reviews, folks that are on the wait list for long-term care or moving in that direction. It's a wonderful service to help support families while those folks are at home. And like I said, we've been getting some excellent feedback as we do that outreach and providing care without folks having to go into the hospital or their doctor's offices as often, and certainly reducing our 911 calls. We have been conducting a pilot for regional bus service, and that has been moving people from east to west throughout the county, as well as a connection to Go Transit. That will continue through to September this year. And then, of course, we'll have the opportunity to look at that data and see what the ridership was like, and whether we can support a permanent transit type activity and service through the county. We did a lot of work with our ECEs. We know that daycare is certainly in high demand with wait lists throughout the county. And with the new federal program of funding, we're seeing a further increase in demand for those programs. And one of the first things is attracting more ECEs into our community. So a lot of work was due there. There's a great video that's out if you want to check that out on the website, and talking about the rewards of that career choice. We also did a lot of work on advocating for homelessness tools and looking at ways that we can help with that system coordination. Of course, the county plays that lead role. We did have both the shelter and the warming room available in Cobourg through the winter months. The shelter will of course continue on. Leadership in change, when we look at this priority, if we want to move to the next slide, we did advocate for the reinstatement of the Via Rail Train 651. That effort does continue on, and there was certainly a very concerted effort to try and convince Via to return that service. We advocated for the revision to the proposed federal electoral boundary, and that did see some changes made. Of course, we wanted to keep Northumberland whole. We do have some other pieces of our neighbors that are attached to the final product, but it was important that we maintain Northumberland for our own ongoing advocacy work and partnerships with the other levels of government. And that is what was changed after that advocacy work was done. When we do look at our collaboration and our partners, we have been very pleased to be one of the few municipalities that sit at the leadership table for our local Ontario Health Team, known as the OHTN, and we have been a partner since the beginning, and it certainly is paying off when we look at initiatives like community paramedicine. And then, of course, we know that our staff are very important. And last year we did launch our people plan because in order to continue the services that the county does, we need to attract and retain great people at the organization. So we've looking at more ways that we can make sure that we're successful there. So we'll flip ahead to the next slide, and we'll actually go one beyond that to the 2023 initiatives. Some of these are continuing from 2022, so I'll just hit those very quickly. I'd mentioned the commuter pilot shuttle service, and as I said, that continues through to September of this year. We are seeing more and more activity happening at the Ontario Agri-Food Venture Centre, a number of some supports there for newcomers and introducing their foods, helping folks to get their entrepreneurship dreams launched. When we look at our understanding of Indigenous heritage, we have a number of efforts there, and probably our highlight, or maybe our headline project, is the work that we're doing with the Northumberland County Archives and Museum. We will have a new facility that will be co-located with a new Golden Plough Lodge, and our first exhibit will speak to Indigenous languages, and we're very excited. Our staff have been partnering with the local Indigenous community with some great learning circles as they prepare for that exhibit. The community and social services team are continuing to work on some important initiatives like the homelessness, to implement homelessness for individuals and families information system, or HIFIS. And this will be a great tool that we've been working on getting in our community for a long time so that we can better manage the data and understand the needs within our community. And also we have been working very diligently with the community safety and well-being plan and seeing that relaunched as we look at the responses from that plan that was initially mandated a couple of years ago. We're now seeing the implementation phase to begin. As we go to the next slide, we'll just speak briefly to the GPL and NCAM. As I said, that project is well underway. It's next to our headquarters building, and we can see it changing as we drive into work every day, which is very exciting. The Elgin Park redevelopment will finish phase 1 this year, phase 2 next year. And then we do have other housing projects that we are looking to get up and underway. The Trent River crossing, that is in the consultation phase now. We just at council last week, we did unveil some of the latest designs and where that is going, and looking for the community feedback at this point. And as well, there's recently been consultation on the County Road 64 reconstruction. Here's one I think that is near and dear to everybody's heart, is the Brighton Emergency Services Base, and looking forward to that partnership. We have done 3 other co-locations with fire services, with co-located with our paramedics, and exciting to take on number 4. The preparation for the transition of recycling. Some of you may be aware that we announced a few weeks ago that we've come to the point that we will be selling off our recycling facility that was initiated by changes to provincial legislation and how the recycling is managed. It's moving to a producer pay system. And as a result, we will be getting out of that business. So that transition will take place through this year. And initially, we should not see any significant changes to the residents. There should be at least a couple of years of everything remaining stable through that transition period. And as we move to the next slide, we've, of course, like all councils, we've spent some time doing a welcome on board to our new county council members. We have been working on, or we will be working on stakeholder consultations. As I said, we've initiated our strategic plan update, and now we'll continue on through the next few months to do that. We're working on a communications master plan, and that will be with some consultation and then sharing information with member municipality partners. And of course, we'll be working on developing a social housing master plan. So we do have 344 units of housing across the county. Some of those buildings are aging. Looking at those locations and looking at where we can enhance our needs and where our buildings require some work. So with that, I will switch over to Glenn, and he will talk a little bit about the budget.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, and good evening. So just a couple of slides to touch on here. So, and this is information that really is just summarizing what you have in the infographic that was passed out to you this evening. I'm just going to touch on a couple of things quickly. So firstly, looking at the county's 2023 budget at the top of the slide, you can see that the budget for the year totals just over $213 million. And then the components of the budget are broken out between operating capital and reserves in the pie chart at the top. 2023 for the county does represent an extraordinary year from the perspective of the size of the county's budget. It does include some non-recurring large capital projects, such as the continuation of the GPL NCAM redevelopment project, as well as our Elgin Park housing expansion and redevelopment project in Coburg. So those large items are certainly inflating the budget for the year. You'll see as well that the financing for the county's budget from the levy amounts to just over 68 million. This does represent an increase of 6% after growth, comprised of a base levy increase of 4.9% and an increase to our dedicated infrastructure investment of 1.1, totaling 6%. Looking quickly at how the county funds services, excluding debt and reserves, you can see in the first chart here that a significant portion is sourced from grants and subsidies, representing approximately 40%. This really is reflective of the county being a full service upper tier municipality with significant financing coming from provincial ministries. And primarily this is in the areas of service delivery for long-term care, paramedics, social services, social housing, and childcare. The last graph on the slide here displays how property taxes are allocated by service area, and you'll see the largest proportion of the levy dollars goes towards our transportation department, given they have very little in the way of funding from upper levels of government. Moving down to the next slide, what we're looking at here is focusing on the county's 10-year financial plan, and what we are looking at here is a snapshot of what is anticipated for capital investments, 2023 to 2032. Some of the items identified here are multi-year projects already underway, showing the remaining project costs such as the GPL redevelopment project. And then there's also future projects in the long-term model, such as the new Campbellford Bridge, community housing, including projects underway, such as Elgin Park, as well as the Ontario Street project in Coburg, and placeholders that we have within our 10-year model for future expansion of social housing. Then we have our more typical recurring type capital items, such as annual roads projects and fleet. But overall, you can see that there's a significant amount of capital investment within our 10-year model. It approximates $340 million over 10 years. And then the balance of the infographic that was provided really displays the county's financial position, looking at reserves and debt going out 10 years within our model. So next slide, please. And with that, we can take any questions that council may have.
Thank you both for the presentation and for keeping it to the 15 minutes. That was a miracle. Very impressive.
After 15 years, we got it figured out.
Just for council's information, we have reached out to the Director of Economic Development and asked for Dan to bring an update on the broadband rollout. So if you have any questions about that will come in the next week or two, in the next month or so. So perhaps hold any questions about broadband for then, because we'll get more information. It's a coming, Deputy Mayor, it's a coming. Members of council, any questions? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for the presentation. It's really good to see so many things happening regarding social services, social housing, things like that. I recall in 2019 when the affordable housing plan came out, we all agreed that we would find land for the county. Has anyone given you any land in the last 4 years?
We have not been given any yet. We have had conversations with several member municipalities about opportunities. There have been some parcels throughout the county that have been identified as potential, but we have not actually acquired any yet.
All right. I know that there's other conversations going on within the county about how lower and upper tier might better work together. And so I'm wondering, is there any standout things that we can do to better support the county?
I think, land is one that we have raised in the past that obviously the county does not have land. That's just not the nature of the business that we've been in for many years. So we don't have surplus land. So the acquisition of appropriate land. And I think that's part of the conversation that we need to have, is that we need to look at what the needs are of the folks that we serve and when we do affordable or community housing, and where's an appropriate location. So that's part of it. I think once we get to the build phase in any community, we certainly look to the member municipal staff to partner with us as much as they can. And that can be, obviously, public works, planning, and all of those groups. So in the communities where we are building, we really look to establish that partnership when we get to that point, so that we can work collaboratively. We kind of put on our developer hat at that point, but certainly look to ways that we can be as efficient as possible, knowing that we both have the shared outcome.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few questions about the ECE program. Just in terms generally of childcare, do you know what the numbers are in terms of the average wait time for a child to get into daycare? Do you know how many are even on the list?
Actually, we don't have a consolidated wait list. So the county doesn't actually operate daycare. We look at coordinating, we facilitate, we do wage subsidies, we have a number of training programs. So we play a significant role, but we don't actually operate it. So the daycares each maintain their own list. We are going through the exercise now. We do have a position that's a data analyst coordinator, and one of their objectives over the next few months is to do a consolidated list, so we have better numbers. But we do know that basically every daycare in our community does have a wait list. We just don't know what the exact numbers are, and we know that some families will have their names appear on more than one. So we have to be a little cautious on how we use that data and do those counts. So that is something that we'll work at for our own information, but at this point we don't have the consolidated list, so I don't have the exact numbers.
Okay, so without the exact numbers and knowing how many children might age out of that system isn't on the radar yet either.
No. So what we do know is that we know more spaces are needed, and our team are looking with our partners that are daycare operators to look at ways that we can get more spaces in our community. We have some targets with the Seawell program, the federal funding program. They have established some targets that they're looking at, and I think it's just over 300 spaces. I think 310
Yep.
sounds. Is what we're looking to create across the county. And of course, they kind of come in chunks because you kind of have to open a daycare.
Right.
But we do know that the need for staffing is one of the biggest challenges in being able to open those spaces. So I know that we did have a recent CAOs meeting where our manager of early years did speak with the CAOs about opportunities for spacing, because some of our member municipalities do have spaces that would be suitable for a daycare location. So we had that conversation again, that partnership, that if there is a location available, but also looking at ways that we can encourage people to choose that career path and choose that career here in Northumberland.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Wheeldon?
Thank you again. Is there any prospect of a county climate action plan, or is that something that needs to start at a lower tier?
There has been some work done. There was work done, I guess, about 3 years ago or so now. We did have FCM funding, and we worked on a plan. We had temporary staffing with that funding, so that really didn't get past the plan stage because we needed to do some implementation. This year in the county's budget, there was a new position approved that will have that sustainability focus. In the meantime, it's not that we're not doing anything. We do our best to build it in. So for example, any of our new facilities that we're building are typically a LEED certification. There's a lot going on in public works, looking at ways that they can incorporate sustainability and sustainable initiatives into those developments. But we will later this year have a person that is focused on that sustainability and the environment, and bringing that lens to all of the work that we do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Yes, sorry, another question. The advanced tools for homelessness system coordination. Could you speak to that a little bit? Because I know Cobourg in particular seems to be under a bit of a crisis between homelessness and drug addiction. So just wondering how this is impacting that.
So what the county as service manager, we are responsible for the homelessness system. So it doesn't mean we deliver all the services, but it does mean that we are the lead coordinator, and we have a number of partners that do that. Cobourg being the largest urban center, that tends to be where the most services are located. And that's where there also tends to be the most response with the shelter and the warming room and so on. So some of the tools that we've been looking for and seeking with things like the Reaching Home funding that will give us access to HIFIS. So we're currently in the process of implementing that. And HIFIS is a system that will better enable us to capture data about the homeless population. So right now we're mandated by the province to do a count, but it's a point in time. It becomes a bit challenging because it happens once, and you have to go to locations and work with our partners to try and reach out. And it's not an exact science. With this tool, we're better able to work with folks as they interact with service providers or the county at different points. They get referenced in the system, so we can see what services they're seeking. We can see where they're moving, where they need supports, if they're moving out of homelessness because they've been successful in receiving those supports. So this will really help us put get a better understanding. So when we do things like the VI SPDAT to assess acuity levels, we can capture that data, and that's what some of these tools will really help us do, so that we have a much better structure and we can understand what our community needs. And we can guess from what we see in Cobourg, and we intuitively have a bit of an understanding, but this will give us some real metrics on it, so that we have numbers and we have specifics for what folks are needing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Could you speak to the railroad upgrades that started and then stopped? And I know that I know that the county is ready to go, but perhaps you could speak to that for us.
And speak nicely.
Politely.
Yeah, politely. We have received notice again. Our director of public works just told me within the last week or so what the latest date is. They do have a tentative date. Unfortunately, at this point in time, when we get these notices, we kind of roll our eyes and say, okay, we'll see if they show. We have had a series of schedules and cancellations at the last minute. So we do have a tentative date, and I can let you know exactly what the date is, but they do have a placeholder, and we're kind of, okay, if they're good to go, we're good to go, but we just don't know.
Without pointing fingers, I just wanted you to be able to let us know that it's working with the railroads can be difficult, especially when it's working with both railroads and scheduling with both of them.
Yeah.
In a small community, they tend to have bigger fish to fry, and they both don't tend to show up in Brighton at the same time, unfortunately, and we need them to. So for this project to be finished.
And we did have some education and a fair bit planned, but given all the delays, if we can just get them here to finish the work, we will be happy.
Yeah, we're really close. It'd be nice to
Yeah.
be done. Deputy Mayor.
Well, great. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for all the great information. Speaking about transportation, the 401 corridor through Northumberland, what is your latest information you have on that? Do you have any?
Don't speed anymore because
No.
we have enforcement happening.
We've got a lot of police cars up there. But, I'm just saying, a lot of folks are wondering, we were told we had information sessions. We did the exit at Highway 30 here. They talked about moving bridges and all those things, and we have to be ready for that. What are we ready? Yeah, do you know what's happening?
Just everybody, Mr. Whiteman is working with the MTO to bring a delegation to council.
About that?
So that we are brought up to speed.
So we got to wait for that.
Well, I'll take, it's May 2nd, so it's coming up. So we'll see that.
The MTO has been making the rounds
Yeah.
as far as their EA process and their consultation. But in the meantime, we have also seen enhanced enforcement, which we're quite happy to see,
Mhm.
and some other activities that are the result of some advocacy work to try and see what can happen to mitigate some of the impacts of what's been going on in the 401 in the last year or so.
Right.
And we've seen some impressive numbers for ticketing.
Okay.
I guess not impressed, depending on which side of this you're on.
And we don't get any dollars out of that. though.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah.
The
The county
county
does.
does?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Somebody gets it. We-
That was one of the reasons for the advocacy. Deputy
Okay,
Mayor.
okay. All right.
Not
Just one.
officially,
Just
we were, it was public safety, but
Just one of the reasons.
So
actually, we were down significantly. We were down over 500,000
Yeah, during COVID.
during COVID, and we had not come back up. So
We were the only region in the province that had not come back up from its pre-COVID ticketing levels. So
and it was lack of direct enforcement on the 401.
and our local OPP were well aware of it.
Yes.
They didn't have the staff to manage it, and they were grateful for our advocacy, I think, and it's helped them quite a lot. So
Well, there's some good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you're welcome. Anything else? I see a lot of work happening over at Brighton Public School, and I think that might be part of the county's investment last year with regard to a kitchen upgrade, CAO.
Yes, that's directly related to the daycare. It did take a bit of work for that funding to get coordinated with the board and the ministry and the county. But yes, very, very exciting for the expansion of the spaces there.
I just also would like you to talk about the advocacy for the boundary riding boundary, and the work we did with the First Nation, partnering with Chief Mowat and the First Nation, and making sure that the county stayed whole, and we continued that partnership with Chief Mowat and the Band Council.
That was a great, I guess, mini project. In the initial boundaries that were published saw the county staying whole, with the exception of a small little triangle of the north part of Alnwick-Haldeman, which included Alderville First Nation. And we work closely with our neighbors in Alderville. We do have a lot of reasons that we would like them to stay with us, as well as that little the balance of the A&H residents. It seemed quite silly to us that we would lose that. So we did reach out to Chief Mowat. We had some conversations and very quickly agreed that it was best to all stay together. So Chief Mowat and past Mayor Gail Latchford, they did the advocacy for us through those consultations, and were quite successful doing that. And it was a great example of being able to work closely with our First Nation and get a good outcome, because we do work together and collaborate on a lot of things.
Thank you. And they reach out to us, and we reach out to them, and it works well. Mr. Dees, perhaps you could take this next question, if you will. I noticed in your slide, $7.1 million in revenue is based on bag tags, tipping fees, and recycling. I wonder if you could tell us of that 7.1, how much of that is bag tags, give or take?
But bag tags, I believe, are about 1.5 million. 2 million, 3 million.
And if that $3 million were to be, if we were to eliminate bag tags and that $3 million were to have to come out of taxes, what kind of an increase would the county residents see?
We'd be looking at about a 5% increase just to make up that balance.
So bag tags save the county residents about 5%.
Yeah.
By being good stewards of their garbage.
That's correct.
Good, thank you. And I know that the province is allowing for multi-year budgeting. Is that something being considered at the county level?
Yeah, that we actually have a report coming forward to the upcoming Finance and Audit Committee looking for council's authorization to move forward with a multi-year approval of a multi-year budget. We do have a 10-year model and it is a detailed model, so we're very well positioned to be able to have council approved multi-year budgets. And in 2022, we did adopt a multi-year budget policy. So we really do have the framework and the basis to be able to do that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor.
Just to go back to transportation again and OPP. Because the Northumberland County can receive funds from the ticketing, is it something that you would venture into photo radar or something for the entire county? And then the county would get the funds, because I know Brighton wouldn't.
Well,
But you could pass those savings on to.
We'll let the CEO answer the question.
All right.
so it's something that we've been monitoring, and we, once the legislation was passed, we have been looking at it. It is still currently restricted to community safety zones, so we're limited in where we can put it. Our analysis to date is that it's fairly expensive to implement, because we obviously need the equipment. You also need to partner with an administration system. Right now, the city of Toronto has that in place. And the last we checked, they were at capacity. They weren't taking on more municipalities to use their administration system, because somebody has to get all those photos. They have to, actually issue those fines. So it's a fair bit of administrative work. And if you're in a large municipality, then of course you have the volume, you have the traffic, you're turning. So our initial analysis was that it would probably still cost us money, so it wouldn't be a revenue generator. It would be a net cost in hope as a safety tool. So the other thing is that you have to communicate and advertise where you're going to put your boxes with the cameras. So making sure that it's going to have some longevity. So we've been watching what's happened in some other communities, because when we put those flashing speed signs up, we know that people's behavior changes and then it kind of goes back over time. And so looking at how some of those impacts are, and there's quite a process to move the boxes around and those sorts of things. So we're still monitoring. We have taken one report to County Council already to talk about that, and then keeping an eye on how it's playing out in other communities to see if at some point it makes sense for us to do that. And I know that some of our member municipalities are looking at things like the administrative monetary penalties and some of the other tools that we can use to streamline some of those processes. And it might work best if some of those things are actually in place. So we're kind of in the wait and see stage right now, but we're certainly well aware of it. And it is another tool that we can consider.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else? Well, thank you both very much. Appreciate the presentation and information you brought for council. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council receives a presentation from Northumberland County, Jennifer Moore, CAO, and Glenn Dees, Director of Finance, regarding the 2023 county budget and the state of the county. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next presentation comes from Terri Lynn Simpson and Tamara Perron, Smithfield Public School Playground Committee. And there's a little purple button in front of you. You can push when you're ready to go. There you go.
Perfect. Okay, so I am Tamara Perron, formerly DeVries. I am a mother of two that attend Smithfield Public School. I'm also a local paramedic here in Brighton. I've been chairing the fundraising aspect of the playground, and this is
Yeah, so I'll introduce myself. So I'm Terri Lynn Simpson. I'm also a parent of two. It's kind of a theme with our group at Smithfield Public. I am currently a consultant and, partner with this other parent over here. And I should mention too, we have a small contingent of our team back here. So thank you guys for coming to show your support. So we're going to take you through a presentation tonight of just an overview and then specifically our ask for support. Tamara is going to start and then I'll round it out. So I guess what we're going to go over, so just our main objective is to go over with council our top line overview and make our clear request for our asks. We kind of initially approached council with a general ask, just asking for any type of help as we're a small community with only 210 children. And we're fairly limited with our funding currently. So next slide. So Smithfield Public School, if you're not aware, was built in 1952. It's gone through numerous threats, essentially, of potential closures. Back in 2019, our previous principal worked with parents and developed a conceptual architectural plan of what our school wishes were. And since that time, our school populace has grown to 211 children. We also we're now home to 2 portables as of this year. And obviously, like most of Brighton, the populace just keeps growing and we're going to get more children. So that threat of closing the school is now not on the radar. So we are continuing with fundraising efforts. We had quite the kick in June of 2022 with some amazing businesses and partnerships that came alongside us and helped project us and propel us in the right direction. Next slide. So that's our current playground. The only maybe change that is different on there is we now have 2 portables and our willow tree up in the right are a little bit more robust, and we've just recently over the weekend planted 2 more tunnels off of that. So next slide, and I'll pass it off to Terri. All right. So I'm going to share with you guys kind of what the proposal is. So as Tamara mentioned, back in 2019, there was a master plan created by Bowden Associates, and it was shared with the school. They created a kind of a general bubble diagram of what an improved play space would look like. And so we've been tweaking it a bit as we've learned more of the last year. But just to give some highlights, we have in orange, the soccer field that exists today, and then the proposal would be moving north from that to have a labyrinth. We call them sub-elements or features within the playground. And then in between that, there is a proposal for 2 play structures, one for smaller children and then kind of the larger 5 to 12 structure. There's in the green space at the top, that's mainly would remain as a baseball diamond. And so that would continue to be there. It needs a little bit of refurbishing, but that would stay. Moving down on this picture, there's a hangout area in the back that's currently being planted with trees and adding some shade elements in there. There's a purple dot in the center that is an outdoor classroom feature. Moving down in the orange is our musical willow walk. And so that's, as Tamara was sharing, we have beautiful willow tunnels, and we've just added 2 more that, the children can run through, and hope to add some outdoor musical elements that can stay in the elements.
Down at the bottom is the pink teepee kitchen. So that's an outdoor play kitchen. And then the yellow is a tire climber. Okay. And so I have a few pictures of that coming up. And then just because most probably don't know what a tire climber is. And then moving back towards the center, we have asphalt games. So there's stenciling happening there to add additional games. And then the green is the existing sandbox, and that would be improved. There would be shade added and so additional elements added to the sandbox area. Okay, so that's the proposed master plan. Next slide. So then the question is, you know, how much is that? And the total's covered on both, I guess. But, you know, all of that, if we were to, you know, over time be able to bring that together, that's a total of 350,000. Okay. You know, obviously we need to master plan for this. We need to strategize on how we would do it. So we have a subcommittee of parents and other community members who have come together. As Tamara mentioned, we've kind of divided into fundraising and execution work so that we can keep both moving forward. And so the execution has kind of been chunked up into 3 phases. So we're focusing, because we're a small team, so obviously we can't, you know, do everything at once. And we're focusing on phase 1 work. Okay, so phase 1 work right now is the musical willow walk and tire climber, sandbox enhancements, primary play structure, the play structure number 2, which is for the older students, and then the play field leveling. Okay, so next slide, please. So, you know, phase 1 is not necessarily tied to 2023. Phase 1 is just what we are actively going after right now. For summer of 2023, we have some specific priorities. And they're based on what we have funding for today, and then what our ask is and what our desire is of what we could bring to have the biggest impact for the playground. So key priorities right now are to level the primary soccer pitch. So there's a picture here, hard to kind of see, but it's basically the length of the soccer pitch is a ditch. So the ditch runs kind of down the center. So the kids kind of, you know, cope with that as they play. The second point would be of the sandbox feature of phase 1, we want to install shade over that sandbox. So there's no shade in the area, it's wide open. So it needs shade. So the tire climber, so there's a graphic of what it would look like. So it adds kind of a active play jump feature. So we would want to include that, and then the willow walks. So the willow, there's an example of a tunnel there. And if you wanted to take a walk through, there's 2 fairly well-established ones there. And it's very interesting. So I got to participate in the planting over the weekend. It's very interesting. So install play structures. That is kind of a twist in from the original design. There was a proposal to provide some hill slides and some rock climbing. And, you know, as a team, we said, hey, we really just need to focus on, you know, what do the kids want? And for the most part, they want some standard playground play structures, which they don't have today. So the combined total of 2 play structures would be 85,000. The Blue Imp is the company that provided the quote. They're in the standard manual from the school board. They did indicate that they could provide both by September 1st if they had a purchase order by the end of April. And so that would, you know, really give us a boost to that playground area for September. So next slide would be, you know, our specific asks. So, you know, how are we funding all of this? Our fundraising and grants to date total about 43,000, and our phase 1 or our priorities for 2023 are 122,000. So we're coming here looking for support to fund 85,000 for the 2 play structures. There was and we missed incorporating it in here, but there was a conversation in past meetings about, the intent to make this playground a part of the Smithfield community and to make it accessible to everybody. If what I've noticed just joining that school this year is that there really is that community atmosphere there today. But we would want to formalize that with the school board. So, we've had some conversations with them. And there's, positive, feelings towards it. There's intent to kind of come up with an agreement. We don't have anything, concrete to share here, but we would want this to be a community play structure. I think that was it.
Thank you both. Appreciate the information. I will open the floor to questions from members of council. Councilor Ferreras.
To the chair, thank you. Is the school board contributing anything to your marvelous project?
So that's an excellent question. Unfortunately, school boards do not historically provide any funding for the outdoor elements of the school. Back in 2018, the school board did invest a large amount of money into upgrading the infrastructure of the actual school to make it more bright and accessible, and increase storage and increase classrooms and bathrooms onto kindergarten classrooms. So the investment from the school board is only for the actual school, unfortunately.
Learning spaces.
Yes.
You have a follow-up? Go ahead.
The chair, thank you. To follow up, you indicated earlier that the school had faced threats of closure on a number of occasions. Are you still at risk to that because of your modest enrollment?
No, we are at currently 200, just over 210 children, and the area continues to grow. There's just increased building and more families into the area. So it's not going to happen. And plus the other local schools are just continuing to grow. Brighton has portables and it was a new build. It's just continued to grow. Spring Valley, I believe, is at max, and Murray Centennial has 4 portables, I believe, and they're max. So if they did close the school, there would really be nowhere for the kids to go.
Yeah. Councilor Butwell.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to give you some history, there was a plan to merge Spring Valley Public School and Smithfield Public School at one point. And then we all wonderfully had a bunch of new families move in, and we were able to stay separate. Not that we don't love being together as our country schools, but the plan was to merge them, and it does not seem to be on the radar at all anymore, at all.
Deputy Mayor.
Just to touch on that, today in the news was all about schools being built in areas where there's heavy development and housing. We brought this up before too. You build 1,000 homes, where are those students going to go to school? And Smithfield at 220 kids is cramming at school right now even with the portable. So I'll touch on that. As far as the schooling goes, as far as the Board of Education goes, aren't they responsible for the type of equipment that is on that field? And so they don't play a capital, but they don't participate in that in any way. They leave it to parents and children to get their own equipment.
Yes. So every year the school council is expected to fund a maintenance fee, a maintenance cost, and the board comes in and provides maintenance on the school grounds, but they don't provide installment of that equipment. So they'll do maintenance and they'll do inspections, but not install
Or purchase.
or purchase.
So
Thank
so
you.
when I look to the east here and I see all that new equipment next door, that was the parents to pay for all that, or a fundraising?
Fundraising efforts, grants.
Well, they've done an excellent job there, and I think you're going to end up doing an excellent job too. So,
We're trying.
but I'm really shocked at that. And schooling, there isn't going to be enough schools, so or classrooms or whatever. But we'll deal with that at another time. I know, but as far as your funding goes, what other fundraising have you applied to? Maybe I shouldn't throw names out. There are some fundraising funding agencies around this area, as well as maybe I'll throw the Trillium Foundation out there. I don't know if you would qualify for a Trillium grant. I'll throw out the Brian Todd Foundation. They're excellent.
Yeah, we do have some funding secured by Brian Todd to use this year towards the shade structure.
Okay.
So it has to be purchased and then they will reimburse from there.
So you haven't, and I don't know, I'm not going to ask you to leak anything, but do you have a feel for what that might be? And
From Brian Todd,
yeah,
it's
you don't tell me if you don't.
Oh. I mean, I'm
Yeah, well, it's been issued to us for a specific purchase and it's included in the
Okay.
funding that we had already secured, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But I think we might have other opportunities there too, Trillium, and what.
and we're totally open to any suggestions. I have about probably 8 or 9 grants out and I have not had any positive feedback yet.
Okay.
And I try. But yeah.
Well, I admire what you're doing for the kids and for Smithfield, because Smithfield's been overlooked, not overlooked intentionally, but it's the same. The focus seems to go sometimes to the more urban areas, and
It doesn't
and
bear
it-
the town name for
so
sure.
it'd be nice if with your hard work that this happens. So part of it anyhow. So that's good, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Wright?
I just wanted to say thank you because Smithfield is where I started my school career. So I got very nostalgic looking at this, this map to I know what I was doing over there.
It probably looks the same.
So I was just wondering, what other fundraising opportunities? Is there something that's ongoing? Is there something that we as individual counselors could potentially help out on?
So upcoming, we are currently working on a spring raffle, and it will be coming to a close at our fun fair, which is May the 17th. Thanks, guys. So the draw will happen then. I did submit a invitation for council to join us at the fun fair. It is kind of a celebration for our families and all the fundraising that they've done throughout the year. But we wanted to extend the invite to council so you could actually see the grounds and maybe go down memory lane. Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley?
I recognize that.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an advocate here for Smithfield Public School, and his bedtime comes after citizens' comments. So he would like to make a comment if you allow.
I would like more playground stuff at Smithfield.
Don't we all?
So we have nothing.
We have nothing.
Right on. Thank you, Councillor Rowley, and your advocate. Anyone else for questions from the presentation? Thank you both very much. And this will be on our agenda for unfinished business, for which we can have a further discussion about sort of next steps and where council wants to go with this request.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Freda, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council received the presentation from Terri, Lynn, Simpson and Tamara, Perron regarding the Smithfield Public School Playground Project. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. No, there are no citizens' comments this evening. Brings us to staff reports. We only have one staff report this evening. It's with regard to committee terms of reference. Deputy Clerk, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Ferreira, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council received the staff report regarding the Economic Development Advisory Committee terms of reference, a Health Services Advisory Committee, and an Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee for information. And the council support the suggested change to the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that council support the proposed Health Services Advisory Committee replacing the Physician Recruitment and Retention Advisory Committee, therefore disbanding the Physician Recruitment and Retention Advisory Committee, and that council establish the Health Services Advisory Committee and the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee and adopt the proposed terms of reference for each as presented, and further that council direct staff to proceed with advertising for community members to be appointed to both the Health Services Advisory Committee and the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Madam Clerk, there are two notices of motion on this evening's agenda. Did you receive any more? Thank you. The notices of motion on this evening's agenda will be read as motions at the May 1st regular meeting of council. We have one item of unfinished business being coming out of the Committee of the Whole, request from the Smithfield Public School Playground Committee. So we've just heard their presentation, and the motion before me reads, the motion before me is moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council receive or support the request from the Smithfield Public School Playground Committee for $85,000 for the installation of 2 play structures. Councillor Wheeldon, this is your motion. Are we receiving or supporting?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to see the presentation before I decided. I think there's some discussion about how that might happen that maybe needs to happen before we determine whether or not we.
So we can, so I can, let's pick one. We'll put it on the floor. We can always alter the motion afterward. I would recommend if we're going to be cautious, that we receive it.
Okay.
And we can always change it to support if there's more, and there may be more words we want to put around this motion anyway.
Okay, so for now we will receive.
And I'll open the floor for questions or comments from members of council. Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you. We had talked before about possibility of having some kind of matching program set up. 85,000 seems like it's more than we had left in the budget for extra opportunities. And I'm just wondering how much more and how might we augment it with community funds?
So my recommendation would be to add that we ask for a staff report with regard to this, and ask finance to come back with some information on how we might be able to fund the $85,000 if that was the full amount we were looking to fund, whether it be through matching dollars or what have you. I would also be looking to staff to support a memorandum of understanding with the board that the playground and the school playground space will be open for the public to use in off-school times, much like we have similar MOU with the school board with regard to the track over at the high school.
May I follow up? The next thing that comes to my mind then is timelines. You're looking for something soon. We move slowly. I apologize for that. How soon could we potentially expect that kind of a report?
I don't have the director of finance isn't with us this evening, so I don't know. I know the auditors were in this week, so I'm sure that's taking up an abundance of her time. Director Walsh, any idea how quickly we could turn a report of this nature around?
Mayor to council, no, I don't offhand, but I will speak to Director Whitfield to ascertain that. It could be a very simple brief report, I hope.
Could be. Deputy Mayor?
We set aside some money for, I believe, and I don't know how much, but did we budget something for this?
I don't recall us budgeting anything for this. I think we
talked
I think
about
the
it?
committee of the whole sent me away to have a conversation with the school, which I did, which has precipitated this conversation. And I think the discussion was that if we were to go down this road of matching dollars or what have you, that the director would come back with some advice for council at that point. So I think we are where we thought we would be in terms of that. But I don't believe we earmarked any dollars for this project
So
in the budget.
based on that, I believe you're probably correct. We should take that time to get we could even come up, do a better job, perhaps having all that information brought to us.
So we won't make, we won't make the end of April deadline. And as soon as you said it, I went, that's not going to happen in my own mind, but you probably knew that anyway. And so we understand that you want this to happen sooner rather than later. And so we will be as expeditious as we can about getting a report, making a decision. Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does anyone have any recollection about how many unallocated funds there were left in our grant and aid or our reserve for that?
Is it 15, 17, somewhere
17?
around there? Less than 20?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. I was pretty disappointed to hear that the Board of Education doesn't contribute to any physical assets. I think that's kind of unfair. And I think little kids need something. But I'm concerned about two things. I think the number is a little concerning, but equally concerning is the precedent that it sets in light of the registration at the other schools and the pressures on them, and with the growth of Brighton, are we setting ourselves on a path that could become extremely costly going forward? And don't interpret that as me denying kids playground stuff, because I saw the pictures, I've driven by the school. They need something. I'd like to get them something, but I'd also like us to think about what we could be starting for ourselves moving forward.
About 14 years ago, I coached soccer. It might be hard for some people to believe, but it's true. And my younger daughter was 8, and we were sent up to Smithfield to do our practices. The good news is the playground, the soccer pitch isn't any worse today than it was 14 years ago. The bad news is not any better. I equate the playground equipment thing very much with hospital equipment. Province doesn't pay for it. Community has to fund it. And the hospital and province will cover the cost of maintenance and making sure inspections are done. It's a very similar model in terms of playground structure for schools. The other thing I think from a I'll use my rote with precedent. Councils don't set precedent. We make decisions on a one-off basis. However, I understand your point. What we do for one, we really should feel obligated to do for everyone else. That said, in downtown Brighton, there's an awful lot of playground equipment that the community pays for. Not at the school necessarily, but certainly within a 10-minute walk. That's not true if you live in Smithfield. In fact, there's nowhere I would suggest you can walk in Smithfield to get to publicly funded playground equipment. So this would be our only opportunity really to help with the Smithfield community for that purpose. And the good news from a Spring Valley public school point of view, I think there's only 2 kids who can walk to Spring Valley. So that is an entirely bused community. Go ahead. No, I'm going to Councillor Fredis. I think he has.
Sorry.
My comments were more or less based on him, so I'm going to let him respond.
Okay. Thank you. I think I understand what you're saying. In essence, it almost becomes a municipal park where we don't have one. And therefore the maintenance and the cost of that falls to the school and the school board. And that has some appeal and some logic. Okay. And I think they deserve one in the area. But it then comes down to getting a sign off from the school board, and based on the presentation, I didn't get the warm fuzzies that that's imminent, and
Yeah,
that's a concern.
I think it was mentioned that it was something that was not included in their slide. Certainly my conversations with the principal, who has had conversations with facility services at the board, has indicated that an MOU would not be an issue at all, that the board would be willing to strike an MOU with the municipality for the purpose of allowing our community into that school play space in off school hours. So I'm actually fairly confident that would happen. And certainly I think the parent council would understand that we would want to tie any funding to an MOU. And so we'd have advocates from the Smithfield Parent Council on our behalf for that. Councillor Wright.
Could we change the motion that's on the floor currently to from receive to a referral to staff for the report with a date to come back so that we can?
Yeah,
more
I
expedient?
think that's a good idea. I'd like to have the full discussion to make
Okay.
sure we incorporate everything we want to, and then we'll look to Councillor Wielden to change his motion, and we'll look to you to say yes or no as
All
the
right.
seconder. Councillor Botwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I would really love for us to see, even though we cannot necessarily commit the funds this evening, at least move forward with an understanding that it would seem that council is on board with this. And so I'm basically echoing what Councillor Wright was saying, is clearly there's no way to change the motion on the floor at this point, but I would say also that with it being the only park space in Smithfield, that's even more of a reason for us, especially when we don't have to mow the lawn and keep it up. It'll be a fantastic thing to see in that community.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I'll just remind everybody about ENSS has a nice track and field that the municipality didn't set a precedent with, and that's where that I think that's where your slogan came from. But anyhow, I just wonder, well, you can ask that question. My point is that we're not setting precedent. We're looking at the needs of our community, the full community, and all we're asking for the school board is to recognize the entire community needs their involvement in our kids, not just from an educational point of view, but from a humanistic point of view. And so the precedent, there was no precedent, but the non-precedent has happened. And we do have use of the track, and you're welcome to go out there and run around there almost anytime. And so I break a leg. So for us to even discuss that, I think that's off the table now. And I think we've done some other things with ENSS. I won't, some not applied to playground equipment, that's for sure. But so I think we need to find a way to move on this, and I think you've got it capitalized, okay? And I think we need to, and we're showing here that I think we're probably going to be doing something for them, I hope.
Well, let's wait and see what the motion looks like.
Well,
Councillor Wielden.
we can't change the motion. No.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Oh.
So what I would like to propose then is that we indicate in the motion that we support some funding for the playground, an amount which will be determined after seeing a staff report at the next meeting. Is that too fast? I'd like to go fast.
We can say that. And
Okay.
if it doesn't happen, we can express our disappointment, but that's all that we can do.
Yeah, so I'd like our motion to say that we support funding the Smithfield Public School playground expansion or redevelopment with an amount to be determined after consulting with staff via a report to be delivered at the next council meeting.
May I offer a suggestion on wording? So that council supports the funding for the Smithfield Public School redevelopment, and further that we refer the matter to staff for a report on finance recommendations supported by a memorandum of understanding with the school board. Just
Yes.
so we have that in the motion, that everybody's clear, we need an MOU if anything's going to happen. Is that, do you like those words?
I like those words. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, do you like those words? I'm going to write those words down.
And did we come up with a date? Do we have a date?
We're going to put the next regular council meeting. Councillor Rowley.
Oops, no, thank you. So I believe Councillor Butwell asked how much we had left in our grants and aid program. We also have a youth initiative fund that there's some money in. I think we need to look at all of those opportunities, regardless of whether it's matching dollar for dollar. Mayor, you've sat here when council has approved big funding dollars and There's a timeline in payback. Doesn't need to be all done this year. This school, this community needs playground equipment. We can't just have painted lines on the back parking lot. They need more. So I say find the money and get her done.
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Rowley.
My grandson says he has nothing to play on at school. He needs something.
Yes, we heard.
Thought he went to bed. No, I don't.
So here's what I think we've written. Okay, before I do this, go.
Okay, so the question I have for our guests, what amount, okay, if we're talking about how many dollars we're going to be thinking about, how many dollars would you need to get what you needed done by September? Can I ask? a question?
$85,000.
No,
I think that was pretty clear.
for just those two items?
Yeah.
Well, you should have come
So
in.
the problem is they have to be purchased through the school board's approved facility, blah, 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 blah book. And so that's why the equipment tends to be more expensive than certainly than if you and I went to Canadian Tire, but even more so than sometimes if the municipality goes to market.
Yard sales coming up. But
Yeah.
anyhow, well, we're trying. So go ahead, Mayor.
So here's, okay, go ahead, Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hypothetically speaking, if Councillor Wheeldon withdrew his motion. If Councillor Wheeldon withdrew his motion, because it sounds like we don't have an issue with funding this. It's just a matter of finding the funds, reallocating them from one line item to another, perhaps coming up with a plan of maybe a partial repayment through a fundraising or something like that. There goes, so bye fire truck.
We don't talk about fire trucks. After the budget is passed, you don't talk about fire.
Okay, so hypothetically speaking, if Councillor Wheeldon withdrew that, could we not present a motion that says the council would support and find funds and do whatever we need to do behind the scenes to make it happen?
So Councillor Wheeldon could withdraw his motion, or Councillor Wheeldon could revert back to the original motion that we support the request for $85,000, which would simply then tell staff that what we're looking for is a report to tell us how we're going to fund it.
Okay.
Period. If that's the preference of council and Councillor Wheeldon, who is the mover and has the motion on the floor at the moment.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to that. I wasn't really aware that we could just put out money that we don't necessarily have. So,
you can do anything as long as it's not illegal or immoral.
We have half of it, Jeff.
yeah,
We have what's left in grants and aids. We have about 15,000 in the youth initiative. We're halfway there.
well, yes, half is not there though. Okay. If this
We
is
have
something
reserved-
we can do, I would like to do it. I just didn't know that it was something we could do.
So we're going to leave the original wording of the motion.
Okay.
Supporting the original and then adding and further that the matter be referred to staff for a report.
at the next council meeting and with a memorandum of understanding somewhere.
If I say to provide a funding model, does that work for everyone to provide a funding model? Supported by a memorandum of understanding with the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, and further the report be delivered on May 1st, 2023. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, May 1st, 2023, does this allow you to order these items? It still doesn't.
The check would have to be written. So even if we say yes on May 1st, check probably doesn't get written until
Next
earliest the next
Yeah.
Friday, earliest, but probably not till the next week. So you're mid-May.
Do you believe, delegates, that you might be able to speak with the suppliers on this one? And they may be able to honor pricing or hold a place for you?
Go ahead. We wouldn't normally do this.
Okay. So their input is that they have done construction while school has been in session before. So they're well versed in, cordoning off an area and doing construction. So I had just wanted to have it for the first day. But if it's not, they can still do work while school is there.
Yeah, drive by Brighton Public School right now. Holy
Exactly.
moly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the quote would stand. Yeah. Yeah. They didn't give me like a deadline to when it would stand by, I think we could go a few weeks, but not months. So, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Fredis.
It may make my question kind of academic then. If there really is a week or two grace, hopefully we can address this in that time frame. The alternative, as I see it, is if we have 17 left in our grants and aids, and there's another 15 in the youth fund, so we're pushing 40. It would appear that we have the resources that we could vote this evening to allocate at least half the funds they're looking for and refer the question on the other part to staff. So at least perhaps gets them one of the structures, if timing of the order is the issue.
The director looks like he has a comment.
I like the creative thinking, Mayor to Council. We'll take that in the form of direction rather than a motion. There might be some other moving parts that we might need to coordinate with that.
My recommendation would be let's wait to get the report. Let's have a more fulsome look at this. I understand the urgency. I certainly understand the urgency from the committee and the wish to make this happen from council. I don't think an extra week and a half is going to critically impact the school. And whether it's a Labor Day, post Labor Day opening or a just before Thanksgiving opening, it's still good news. Let's keep this ball rolling in a way that allows staff to wrap their heads around it without making people sweat. Fair? So the motion before us, after much hen scratch and I'm sure a phone call from the clerk, what does this mean? We'll talk. Is moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright, that council support the request from the Smithfield Public School Playground Committee for $85,000 for the installation of 2 play structures.
Cameron.
You're not muted, Councillor Rowley, just so you know. You're screaming into your microphone and you're not. Cameron, go see grandma, hurry up. There he is.
Thank you, everybody. Say it.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
There you
Cameron. We're not
Okay,
there
bye-bye.
yet, but we're getting there. And further, that the matter be referred to staff for a report to provide a funding model supported by a memorandum of understanding with the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, and further the report be delivered on May 1st, 2023. Any further discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. So that brings it, so May 1st, you can expect to hear something. Brings us to bylaws. As a bylaw to appoint boards and committees for 2023 to 2026. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. Council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to appoint various boards and committees of council for the term 2023 to 2026. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor.
There was one, is this I'm sorry, is this where we have the individuals that are on the committees?
This is where we have council members.
Yeah.
Is it
and-
both citizens? Oh, yes.
And there was
'Cause it's
one that
statutory
it said there was 2 council members and there's only one named. That was the health committee.
Which one?
Remember the health services? I believe Byron's on that, and then I was to be on there. It says 2 counselors.
The Health Services Committee is not yet named in this bylaw. We just formed it tonight.
Oh, okay. All right. Right.
That will come forward at a future meeting.
Okay.
Anything further?
Didn't want it to slip by.
Understood. All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And the tax rate bylaw, it's moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to provide for the adoption of tax rates for 2023 and to further provide for penalty and interest in default of payment thereof. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to reports of advisory committees of council, reports of minutes, and council reports. First is our Heritage Advisory Committee. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the September 12th, 2022 Heritage Advisory Committee meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And the Community Events Advisory Committee. It's moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council received the March 14th, 2023 meeting minutes of the Committee Events Advisory Committee as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Moving on to reports and minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies. The only one before us is the Brighton Public Library Board, moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council received the Brighton Public Library Board meeting minutes November 23rd, 2023 as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. We move into correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. The first piece of correspondence comes from the City of Owen Sound and is moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council support or receive the City of Owen Sound request for support for Municipality of Chatham-Kent's resolution regarding reducing municipal insurance costs. Councillor Wright, this is your motion. Do you prefer to support or receive it? You okay with that, Councillor Wheeldon? The motion reads that we will support the correspondence. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Chair. It strikes me that, well, I did ask Director Whitterfield how much our insurance has gone up over the last few years, and it was over 50%. It's a huge amount. That said, the insurance industry is probably the only institution in North America that has actively and accurately reflected the risk of climate change in society. And so, yes, insurance costs are rising. So having a motion that says we need insurance rates to go down might as well be a motion saying that we need to do more to address climate change. In that respect, I absolutely support it. Asking for a plan, I mean, they're vague enough about it that we could put whatever we want in there as what it would mean to lower insurance costs. But ultimately, either insurance companies will continue to be profitable by raising their costs as their payouts rise, or we will get better at managing our risks and they will continue to insure us. So in that respect, yes, I support this motion, just with the caveat that we need to better manage our risks.
Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. Just a point of information, I guess. Is there a coalition or a body that provides municipalities collectively with their insurance, or is each municipality on its own?
Each municipality is on its own, but there's only a few companies that insure municipalities because of what we might think of as fairly extremely high liability and risk.
Okay. So it seems to make even more sense to me then for us to be supporting this motion from Chatham-Kent to appeal to the provincial government to take more measures to positively impact or negatively impact municipal insurance costs. It's not just climate related. It's every risk, and provincial governments in past have stepped in to regulate insurance companies in this province that impact your and my house and auto rates. There's no reason why they can't do that again to safeguard municipalities, or somehow or other find a way of funding us to lower the burden from the 54% hit that we're taking. So I think we should be more assertive and aggressive in supporting Chatham-Kent in this initiative, because it's in the long-term best interests, not only of Brighton, but of Northumberland and the other 444 municipalities across the province.
Also, fair comment. I'm surprised actually that this doesn't have a whereas statement about joint and several liability, which seems to be the over and over again overarching discussion about the true costs associated with liability in a municipality, and that's what we get dinged no matter what happens. If we're included in a suit, we're going to be the ones who pay the big bucks, because we are theoretically the ones with the never-ending pockets, because it's everybody's pocket that they go into, and that's the unfortunate thing. And in the 20 or so years I've been around the table, there hasn't seemed to have been a government provincially that wants to tackle the joint and several liability issue. They talk good words around it, but they never actually tackle the issue. So I think continuing to support motions like this will not hurt Brighton at the end of the day. Go ahead, Director.
Just an interesting case in point, because of the joint and severable liability imposed on municipalities for licensing and site plan control agreements and other development agreements, legal advice is to increase the certificate of insurance for commercial liability up to 5 million from 2 million just a short time ago.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next piece of correspondence is a request for a proclamation from Operation Smile Canada. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Fredis. The council support the request from Operation Smile Canada to proclaim June 18th, 2023 as the longest day of smiles. Whereas Operation Smile Canada is a global medical charity providing free, life-changing surgeries and medical care to children born with cleft conditions around the world. And whereas every 3 minutes a child is born with a cleft condition, and lack of access to safe, effective surgery means that easily treatable conditions like cleft lip and cleft palate can become fatal. And whereas Operation Smile Canada believes every child with a cleft condition deserves exceptional surgical care. And whereas the longest day of smiles will unite Canadians from coast to coast as they raise awareness and funds. And whereas on June 18th, 2023, the citizens of Brighton are encouraged to learn more about how to support this worthy cause by visiting www.longestdayofsmiles.ca. And whereas our community can help celebrate the longest day of smiles by posting #longestdayofsmiles on social media. Now, therefore, Council of the Municipality of Brighton does hereby proclaim June 18th, 2023 as the longest day of smiles in Brighton, and commend its thoughtful observance to all citizens of our municipality. Councillor Butwell, Councillor Fredis, I have added the name of our municipality in the fourth line of the fourth whereas statement, just so you know. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And from to the Township of Mulmer regarding Bill 5, it's moved by Councillor Wielden, seconded by Councillor Wright, that council support the request from the Township of Mulmer regarding Bill 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse of Local Leaders Act 2022. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to FYI correspondence from Northumberland County, moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by, is that you, Ron? Deputy Mayor Anderson? Is that you? Nice. The council received the updates from Northumberland County from April 3rd to 14th, 2023. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, Councillor Paredes.
To the chair, thank you. It's probably, I think we've gone by it, but we were here talking Northumberland. And I know you said we were going to hear more about rural broadband, but I was unclear who that was coming from, the county or from Director Walsh?
The county, the economic development team at the county that is the lead on the broadband initiative across the county. Dan Borowak will be coming with his team.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything further? All in favor? Being unopposed, that motion's carried. Are there any questions from anyone in the gallery with anything on tonight's agenda? And there's no one joining us by Zoom. Thank you. So we will take a 10-minute recess before proceeding into closed